Hey guys, Mr. Farmer here. We are doing Chapter 4 today of Autodesk Inventor. Chapter 4 is all about the model history tree. It's in the browser, which is on the left-hand side of your screen. We'll get into that here in a minute. Learning objectives, we are going to understand feature interactions, use the part browser, modify and update feature dimensions, perform history-based part modifications, change the names of created features, and implement basic design changes. This is pretty important stuff. A lot of times when you're modeling a part, you have to go back and edit it several times. So this shows you how to go back and do that. We're going to start a new part. Let's see here. It is going to be in inches. If you're following along, I'm on page 4-3. So this thing over on the left, this is called the browser. And it contains a lot of information that's very helpful. Right now there's not anything here because we haven't started modeling yet, but we do have the different views, right? We do have the front, top, right view, the isometric view, master, and you can add and edit these views. We do have the planes. There's the YZ plane, the XZ plane, and the XY plane. Let me go to home view so you can see these. YZ, XZ, XY, and we do have axes. Right, that's the x-axis, y-axis, z-axis, and the center point is right there. So a lot of times you'll need to reference these planes or these axes. That's how you get to them. You go to the origin folder. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm just going to model the part. Let's see here. I'll sketch on the XY plane. I like to start on the XY plane because that's usually the one you're familiar with from geometry class. And I always start at the origin. And let's just go through here real quick. This doesn't look too complicated, 0.5. So you see what I'm doing here is rough sketching, just rough sketching using the constraints as needed. We're going to go back up, another 0.5, down, let's see here, 1.25, and this will be 2.5. Down, and then this is very important. A lot of people forget to do this. You've got to close your geometry. So I've got to take this line and I've got to go back here and close it. If I don't do that, I don't have a solid. If it won't hold water, you're not going to be able to extrude it. So I also need to add a fillet. I can do that right here. Fillet. I'm going to make this a 0.25 or quarter-inch fillet right there, and I believe that is it. I'm going to finish this sketch, go to home view, and we're going to extrude this thing. Let's see, how far do we extrude? 2.5. I like to extrude symmetrically from the middle. You don't have to do that, but it does help when you're modifying your part later on. So we'll make this 2.5. Okay, so we've got this part here, and then we are going to sketch on this face, and I believe we're going to draw a 2.5 circle. Yep. I'm going to draw a line here to close this geometry. I don't technically have to trim this if I don't want to, right? I can leave that geometry there. You can have geometry in your sketch that you don't actually use. That's perfectly okay. So we'll just extrude this portion down, and so you got some functions here. We can go through all, we can go 2, we can go 2 next. I'll say 2 and all the way to this surface. That way they match up perfectly, right? Good. And that's the extrude option. And I messed up here. I should have gone back. This first extrusion here, now we've got some stuff going on in our browser. This is the model history tree, or the model tree for short. This is like a diary of all the stuff you've done, right? So we've got extrusion 1, which is this piece here, and extrusion 2, which is that little circle I just added on. And I can actually suppress that. So you see our first one, right? And I can unsuppress. What happens if I suppress the first feature? What do you think is going to happen to the second feature? Is it going to stay there, or is it going to suppress as well? Well, let's find out. Boop. It suppresses as well. That's because it's dependent. It's dependent on the first feature, right? So I'll unsuppress, And you can actually rename these. Extrusion 1, Extrusion 2 is pretty vague, right? I don't really know what Extrusion 1 means. So I can rename this. Let's see here. Let's see, where is rename? So there's not a rename option. We're just going to click. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so I'm going to say this is my base. Good. And then we'll say this is the semicircle. Good. So now they have names. This is the base. This is the semicircle. And we talked about this before, but every 3D feature is based on some 2D sketch. So if you hit this little plus sign here, you can see the sketch that it consumed in order to be a 3D feature, right? Every feature consumes a sketch. So the base feature consumed sketch 1. The semicircle feature consumed sketch 2, right? Okay, so let's keep going here. Let's say we messed up. We modeled this part, and we modeled it to be a width of, well, let's just measure here. The width is 2.5, right? But let's say we made a mistake, and it's actually supposed to be 3 inches. Do we have to start all the way over? Do we have to erase this part and start from scratch? No. That would be really inefficient. We can actually use our model tree to make modifications to our features and our sketches. So I can go over to the base, I can right click, and I can edit this feature, edit feature. And it's going to take me back to my extrusion, and I can take this from 2.5 to 3. Now before I hit OK, think about what's going to happen here. It should get wider, right? It did. Now this did not. I have to update that as well. So I'll go back here, edit feature, but you'll notice editing the feature here doesn't do any good. The feature is just the extrusion. So what do I need to do? I need to go back and edit the sketch that was consumed. I'll go back here, right click, edit sketch. So now I can change this to be 3 inches, and it updates, right? Pretty cool, pretty cool. Okay, so let's put a hole in this thing. That's what it wants us to do. I'm going to sketch on this surface. I want the hole to match up with this circle, but you'll notice I don't have a center point here to really match it up with. So I'm going to use a tool called Project Geometry. Project like a projector in a classroom. Okay, Project Geometry, and I'm going to click this circle, and you'll notice I get a nice center point there that I can use as a reference. So here I can draw another circle, and we'll make this, let's see here, 0.75. Good. And now we're going to extrude cut, right, through all. This is an extruded cut through all. Hit OK. There we go. We got a nice circle in here. Let's see. Okay. Let's say we messed up again. We're messing up a lot. Let's say that this hole, it's really not a hole, it's an extruded cut. Let's say that the diameter of this extruded cut was supposed to be 1 inch. Do we have to delete it and redo it? No. We can modify this feature. In fact, let me rename this real quick. This is hole, right? Do I modify the feature, the 3D part, or do I modify the sketch? What do you think if I'm changing the diameter? The answer is I'm going to modify the sketch. Right click, edit sketch. We're going to change this diameter to be 1 inch. Finish sketch, and it will update automatically. Very good. Okay, I'm going to, let's see here, sketch on this face right here. I'm going to project geometry just so I can use these reference edges. See how they turn yellow? That means they're a reference. And then let's cut a rectangle in here. This will be 1 inch wide by 0.75 inches. Okay, this is pretty critical. A lot of people struggle with this. If I want this rectangle to be in the center of the shape, obviously right now it's not in the center, right? But if I want it to be in the center, how do I make sure that it's right where it needs to be? I can't really guess, right? Engineers don't guess when they're modeling. We have to figure this out. Here's how you do it. if I measure the width of this thing is 3 inches, right? From this side to this side is 3 inches. And the width of my rectangle that I'm sketching is 1 inch. So what you do is you find the difference and divide by 2. So 3 inches wide minus 1 inches wide gives us 2 inches remaining. And we're going to divide that by 2. So 2 inches divided by 2 is 1 inch. And that dimension goes right here, 1 inch. And you'll see that this is perfectly in the center now. And if you wanted to, you could even double check that. I could inspect, I could measure from here to here, and it should be 1 inch. What do you know? It's 1 inch, right? So that's how we center things up. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to extrude, cut through all, through all, and hit OK. So there's the part, and I believe they modified theirs a little bit in Chapter 4. They may have changed a few of the things, but for the most part, it's the same. I'm going to change the view to realistic. I kind of like how that looks. And just for one more bit of practice, let's say we messed up again. Let's say that this rectangle cutout was not supposed to be 1 inch wide. I forgot to rename it. We'll name this cutout. Let's say it was supposed to be 1.25 inches wide. Do I have to delete it and redo it? The answer is no. Do I need to modify the sketch, or do I need to modify the 3D feature if I'm changing the width of the cutout? The answer is I need to modify the sketch. Edit sketch. We'll make this let's make it 1.5. You'll notice right off the bat it's not centered, right? We've got an issue now. So we're going to have to readjust this right here, and this will actually do the work for you, which is pretty cool. I can plug in the math that I was talking about. So this is 3 inches wide total minus 1.5 inches wide for the rectangle that we're cutting out. Divide by 2. Ta-da! It is centered once again. Finish sketch. It updates. Very good. Let's talk about eye properties. Eye properties. This is critical. Right here, if I go to the top, by the way, you can change the name here. We'll call this, what is this thing called? Saddle bracket. There we go. If you right-click here, there's an option for eye properties. Eye properties. And if you go to eye properties, there's a lot of stuff here. Summary, you can put the title, the subject, the author, the manager, the project, status, all this good stuff. But what I'm interested in is physical properties. Physical properties. How are we doing on time? We're good. Go to physical, click update, right? And it's going to give you the properties of this material. The mass, it is 0.349 pounds. The surface area, the volume, the center of gravity, all kinds of good stuff. You can do global properties, principal properties, center of gravity properties, pretty much anything you would want to know about this part, right? You can also change the material. So right now it's this generic material which doesn't actually exist. It is 1 gram per centimeter cubed, which is actually the same density as water. We're going to change this to, let's make it aluminum. We're going to make it aluminum 6061, and that 6061 just tells you how much percentage of an alloy it is. So we'll make it 6061, we'll hit apply. You'll notice it changes color, and some of the properties have changed. The mass changes. Well, actually just the mass, yeah. Just the mass changes because your density changes. So that is eye properties. So when you're turning in your part now, to make sure that you've done it correctly, what I may ask you to do is to right-click, show eye properties, physical, update, and then when you take your screenshot, you will include your eye properties. So when I'm grading it, here's what I'm checking. I'm checking your part, obviously. Does it look correct? Yes or no. I'm checking your material, right? I'm checking the name of your part. Have you named it like you should? And then I'm going to check the mass of your part. Why do I check the mass? I check the mass to make sure that you've modeled it correctly. If you followed all the dimensions correctly, then the mass should match up with what mine is, right? So I'll be checking these 4 things when you turn it in moving forward. Make sure you include eye properties when you do your screenshot, and I'll be sure to put that in the instructions as well. That's it for Chapter 4. You've got a few exercises to knock out here. I think you're doing the transfer fork. Make sure you set your cast iron. Make sure you set your material to cast iron, and make sure you follow all the dimensions. I think that's it. As always, if you have questions, feel free to catch me in class or shoot me an email. Thanks for watching.